All right, well, welcome to the last panel. Thank you very much. Those of you who are outside still chatting, you're welcome to walk back into the auditorium if you'd like to. The rain has stopped, so maybe you're out getting some sun. First, just a quick note, I'm Jeremy Showalter from Swan. I lead product there. We're thrilled to sponsor this event these 2 days. And if you've appreciated that, please tell Guy, if he's here in the audience, that we should sponsor again next year. Feel free to put all the pressure on Guy for next year. With that, this panel is really about, was titled really around developing countries, developing markets. We're going to be taking a slightly different pivot towards just around building Bitcoin and building services around Bitcoin for those countries. And so that's really what this panel represents, people in the space at companies, product engineering, design, et cetera. And so we'll be focused around that. So with that, we'll get started. We're going to start just with kind of first introductions, a little bit about yourself, anything interesting you'd like to share with us at the end of the day, and then we'll get into each of the companies a little bit more next. And before I do that, though, quick note on those vouchers that you saw with the QR codes. Those are from Azteco. If you have not scanned those to get those sats, then please do. If you don't know what to do with those sats, you can always donate them to Tim Fox's church. So feel free to do that today, too, if you haven't done that yet. So with that, Renata, why don't you start off?
Okay, I can go. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for surviving until the end with us. Yeah, so my name is Renata. I'm from Brazil. I've been in the industry for 4 years trying to bring Bitcoin to the masses, basically. So I was lucky enough to be orange-pilled by peer-to-peer traders a long time ago in Colombia. And these guys showed me the power, the transformational power of Bitcoin. So they were like Uber drivers, they were taxi drivers, garbage men that suddenly discovered Bitcoin and improved their lives. And they were like so thankful to that. They said to me, we want to help you also to bring to more people this message. So I couldn't avoid this, and that's how I entered in the ecosystem. I think it sounds a bit naive, but I have a huge faith on the humans. And when Obi introduced the project of FETI, where we have the idea of to connect the most foundational technology, which is humans together, communities, with the most advanced technology, which is freedom technologies like Bitcoin, I couldn't avoid to join. So I'm head of marketing and community for FETI. Nice to meet you.
I'm Akin Fernandez. And I'm Akin Fernandez. I'm the founder of Azteco. And I've been interested in the problem of the form of money, in our case, the fiat money, for many years, since the 1990s. And so when I first heard about Bitcoin, to cut a very long story short, I knew that this was going to be an extremely important software project that's going to change the world literally, not just hyperbole. And so in about 2011, I stopped working on the previous software projects that I've been working on and started working full time on Bitcoin. And the problem that we solved with Azteco, which was mentioned earlier, is we've solved the problem of how to get Bitcoin into the hands of anybody who wants it in a trivially simple way. People talk about Bitcoin, and they're quite right to talk about Bitcoin, but if you leave this part of the equation out, the transformational change cannot happen. And so that's the problem we solved. It's a very difficult problem to solve with many road bumps in the way, but I think we're going to actually succeed. And we're looking forward to working with FETI to make that magic happen.
For sure.
Hey everyone, I'm Skyler, and I'm head of design at FETI. And yeah, I mean, one of my main passions is combining beauty and Bitcoin. So how do we make beautiful and useful Bitcoin products is something I've been thinking about a lot. And it's something that I see is lacking. I mean, in the early days, things are not beautiful, right? They're clunky, they're very technical, and I still feel like that, but things are turning the corner. But Yeah, I mean, I've just always been, I just think that goodness, beauty, and truth are some of the most important things in the world. They lead us to God, and our products should be beautiful and good and true. So that's why I love Bitcoin, and it's why I want to make, it's like something that's driving me at Fedi is just to like, let's make products that are beautiful, useful, and honest, you know, so yeah.
That's great. I'll probably bring up some Old Testament passages as we come back to that. That's very good. Tell us a little bit about the companies, and Akin, I'd like to start with you. Just tell us a little bit about the origin story and sort of how you see Azteco driving adoption. And you know, Alex, a lot of the groups today have talked about this part of the world meaning kind of the majority world, 6.7 billion people. And clearly that means a lot of adoption and a lot of focus on adoption and usage. And so just help us understand kind of your vision for the company, and then Skyler, Renata also for Fedi then, and where it fits within that sort of adoption cycle and where you see that having the most impact.
Well, when I first heard about Bitcoin, obviously I wanted to have a try of it myself. And so I downloaded a copy of Bitcoin D and started to run it. And then I had the problem of actually getting Bitcoin in order to do anything with it. So there was a company called Intersango, which was run by Amir Taki. And you could send a bank transfer to Intersango by walking down to your local bank, paying some cash, and it'll go to his account. And then 3 days later, you would get the Bitcoin in your Bitcoin D, and that's how you could buy Bitcoin back then. And I knew instantaneously, this is not workable. This could be much better. It could be much simpler. And because our thinking about what Bitcoin actually is, that it's not actually money, it's actually just a database. When you think about it as from the point of view of a software developer, it becomes easier to build a business model or to conceive of a business model that is true to Bitcoin's actual fundamental nature. And by doing that, by thinking about Bitcoin by its fundamental nature, you can devise a system of getting Bitcoin that's trivially easy. For example, most of the people in the world don't have a mobile phone account that you have to pay in arrears. They have to pay for their calls in advance. And they buy credits for these SMS calls and SMS and calls, voice calls, in advance from sometimes wooden shacks or supermarkets, these sorts of places, and then they can top their phone up. Now, having knowledge of this, having a Nigerian father, I knew that this could be superimposed on top of Bitcoin delivery, and all the people who had mobile phones, which can run in that back then was blockchain.info's wallet. I knew that with these two things put together, we could put many, many people onto Bitcoin. And that's how I came up with the idea of Azteco superimposing cellular phone top-ups onto the idea of Bitcoin. And of course, other people who don't have the advantages that I've had living in different countries see Bitcoin as a form of money, and then they've gone down the route of KYC, AML, and all the other nonsense, which is anti-Bitcoin, and it's ruined their business models and also ruined the perception of Bitcoin, making it harder for people to make it generally available. So it's very important when we speak about Bitcoin and try and sell the idea to people that we don't miscontextualize it. We have to put it in the right context. We have to tell the absolute truth about what Bitcoin is. And then from that firm foundation, from that starting point, you're going to be able to come to the correct business models, the correct solutions, and you'll be able to serve more people, which is absolutely essential for Bitcoin to do the job it was designed to do. It's as simple as that.
Awesome.
Yes. I don't know, Skyler, you wanted me to go?
I was going to share a little bit about Justin and I coming to this last year. So last year at Thank God for Bitcoin, Justin Moon and I were walking around, and we're just like, you're an engineer, I'm a designer, we should like build something. And I was at, like we were here and we were just talking to people and we're like, we want to do something with communities. We want to do something with like trying to orange pill a town, but like everyone's doing the global south. Maybe we should do something in the US, maybe Austin, maybe Rockdale. Like we can like try to like go to the city and be like, hey, like we'll build a Bitcoin product for you. And like, you know, you'll just like disseminate it to all your citizens. But yeah, we explored like an app like Swan for boomers. Like maybe you just make one just for like boomers. Like I don't know. We were like exploring all these random ideas, but the themes are funny because like all the themes we were like, or I would say the threads we were pulling at are like community, superior Bitcoin user experience, nice product design. Like all these things are now like core principles of Fedi. So like basically over time, Justin started getting involved with Flutterment, which was an open source talk with Eric and Obi last year. And you know, he's like, hey, let's like build a prototype. So we built Flutterment, and Flutterment was like the first federated Lightning wallet on Fediment. And over time, that just like basically grew, and like Obi and Justin and I and Renata, like we all just like grew to this like point now to where we're building. I'll let you get into what we're building. I'll let you describe it. But like, yeah. So I'm very thankful for this conference. Very thankful for the people here. I would just encourage you, like, if you want to start building products, make connections with like-minded people here. A lot of people have been talking about how education is what we need to do, but I think education's good, but we also need to be building. Like, and everyone is a builder. People don't think. A lot of people are like, oh, I can't design or I can't code, but like, God created humans to create. It doesn't matter if you're not like, you don't fit in these like specific technical categories. Like you have the ability to solve problems, which means you can build things and create things. So I think that was what I would encourage, like you all here, find like-minded people, build good things that make people's lives better, and really cool things will come from it. So, yeah.
Renata, let me jump in here just
Yes.
before you tell us a little bit more about Fedi. So Skyler, on that point, I will quote some Exodus here. So this is Exodus 31, 1 through 5. Then the Lord said to Moses, see, I have chosen Bezalel, son of Uriah, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, and I have filled him with the Spirit of God, with wisdom and understanding, with knowledge and with all kinds of skills, to make artistic designs for work in gold, silver, and bronze, to cut and set stones, to work in wood, and to engage in all kinds of crafts. And so as Skyler talks about that, there really is that calling from God to make. We're chosen to make. And so think about where that fits. And that's something we were just talking about backstage, is just as with David, just around what does this look like next year? It looks like probably a lot of discussions like that, like you all were doing just earlier about how can Fedi and Azteco work together, as we all want to do that with Swan also. So let us in the room too sometimes. But that would be awesome. And then tell us a little bit more about that. Like what was coming out of those conversations together?
Yes, I just want to highlight on Bitcoin conferences in general as well, because Obi and Eric, they met in Prague. Meanwhile, you two are meeting here. They were meeting there, and Obi just had come back from Oslo Freedom Forum. And this urge that he felt from the activists saying to him, we need privacy. We need a way to send money. And then he connects with Eric, who was like developing a Fedmint, which is the open source protocol. That's exactly for people's privacy, to keep the privacy together as a group with the people that you trust. So I always say to the team, I feel like, I'm in the middle of an episode of Avengers, because everyone came in with the superpower and say, okay, let's build the thing, And I know all of you here are Bitcoiners, and you had experienced the same. The desire to do the good for the others, it's inside of us as a Bitcoiners, right? Like if we're truly Bitcoiner. And this is not just for Western countries, it's also outside. So I've been helped by people around the globe, in favelas, townships, just because Bitcoin touched them and they understood the benefit and the power of this, the power of change. So when we are starting to create like Ferry, the idea was just custody your money with the people that you trust. And with the time, we started discussing, and people started bringing ideas to us, and we realized we are not just building a wallet or a custody or a storage. We are building a federated OS. And we're like, why we are talking, right?
What is a federated OS?
Exactly.
What is that?
So it's not what is coming right now, it's what we are building. And the beauty of this is we're not going to build by ourselves, because as Apple has the iOS full of apps, as Android has their own centralized data information, we're going to put all the best of Bitcoin together in a place and say to these communities, look, you can run your own operating system. By the way, you can choose Swan. You can choose Azteco for your federation. You have your decision. And how does it work? So basically, you have you pick like the leaders of communities to run these federations. They are the ones that run like servers for the community because they care about the community. And then basically they hold the primary keys for the community. So with that, everyone inside of the community, they have basically their data and their money secured and used within the community, inside of the community. No more Google holding your passwords, access to your email, no more the banks holding your information on exchange, Binance holding your money. So basically, you as a community, you hold together your information and your data with the help of the whole Bitcoin ecosystem. We can talk more there, but that's the main idea behind the federated OS. It's with you now. The power is with you.
I think it's a super, super interesting idea. And what's so important about having tools that are open source and available to everybody, that you can build whatever you think your quote-unquote community is able to tolerate and accept. And if community is very important to your people, they will go for this and it will grow exponentially, and then it will serve its purpose and people will be served. So this is not something that's being forced on anybody. It's something that's one of many options, and they're all going to work and hopefully synergize with each other in the market, and everybody will benefit. And so this is a very, very interesting project, and we'll see what the adoption is like, because at the end of the day, the most important thing is that you get the users.
Exactly.
You've got to get these billions of users on board, and then nobody will be able to argue with you because it's actually happening.
Exactly. And we've been testing, exposing the app to better communities in a very extreme situations. So we exposed to the township in Ekazi, in Guatemala, some of the examples, to farmers in Togo that don't have ID, so they can have micro-lending, lending money from the banks. But also we've been exposing to some activists, because we know if they can work with us, with this product, the privacy and the security is for everyone, it's granted. And then talking about what Skyler just said, sometimes what we understand about building a product is not just developers in front of computer coding, basically. Is this integration, is the feedback. I would love to listen from missionaries. You know what, my situation is this one. So how, and then my brain comes, think about it, process it, then I say, guys, we are not counting on this situation. One of the examples that I was telling to you guys, like I went to South Africa, I saw like this really $20, very primitive smartphones that they were using. I bought a bunch of them and say, guys, sending to you these phones. Our product needs to work there. You know, if it works there, it works everywhere. So if we want to massify Bitcoin, we need to open up our minds as well.
That's exactly right. And
yeah.
also accept the limitations that the many, many people have in that they can't run several apps at the same time. They don't have actually the storage to run them.
Exactly.
And so these are the things that must be considered. And there's 2 billion, at least, people who have to be brought inside of Bitcoin. And unless you address them where they are to their own standards, it's not going to work. We can't expect people who don't have an iPhone 14 to run a native Apple app. So these are the kind of considerations that I've always known would be addressed eventually. It appears that now they are going to be addressed.
We are trying the best, right, Skyler?
Exactly. And this opens up a huge opportunity on many, many levels. The most important one being the distribution of Bitcoin to these people. And I'm not just talking about people who are literate, who can read books about Bitcoin, who can use Bitcoin without being able to read. They can all use phones without being able to read. And so the ability, the prerequisite of reading a book about Bitcoin cannot be the barrier to people adopting it and using it just as a tool and any other tool that they have in their phone or whatever it is. So I think this project could have a profound impact if you get it right. And going back to the design, Skyler, you know that design is super important when we're talking about addressing people who are not technical. It has to be simple to use. It has to be non-intimidating. And unless you're thinking about this very, very carefully, it's not being done. And I love the current crop of Bitcoin wallets, but in many cases, they're not actually thinking about it as hard as they should, to put it in the gentle terms.
Yeah. So let's pull on that design thread a bit. Skyler, I'd like to hear just a little bit of your background from a design perspective, especially just for anyone listening, kind of what that background looks like. And then I'd like to hear just kind of the turn into Bitcoin, like what led you to that moment, and when did you really decide that the rest of your work or much of your work is going to be spent specifically on Bitcoin?
Yeah. So I've always, I'm sure a lot of like 90s kids grew up with like, they got some, maybe they were creative 90s kids, but they got this pirated version of Photoshop and they're like, like manipulating images. Like there's some people that have done this. I was one of those. I was always like making things on the computer. So in college, I studied graphic design, which is much more visual and print focused. So like I was screen printing, making books, making posters. Like it was much more visual, dealing with like a lot of typography and fonts and branding and stuff like that. So I came from like that very hands-on visual, non-screen angle, but I also started taking some like, I took some like coding classes and I like learned how to like make, stuff for the screen. One job I got out of college was it was at this company who sells consumer background checks, which is super scammy, it was just like, it's one of those sites where it's like, look up what your neighbor's doing online, and you search their name, and like you go down this sales funnel, and you're like, you see all these loading bars, and you're just like, you want police records and stuff like this. So I just didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have like a grand or like meta narrative guiding me to like the right job, like Bitcoin. So I was at this job, but my job was to like run split tests. So I would design these like alternate versions of the sign-up funnel, and I didn't realize it at the time, but basically it was teaching me like how important data is to design. So data like basically informs the performance of certain designs, and you basically see like this design converts better than the other one. And once I like realized like, oh, you can actually gather like scientific data on how visual design is like presented and what it actually does to people, it just like basically like converted me to like, okay, you need data, you need design, And you need to make sure that your designs are actually solving the problems you think they are. It's a very weird blend of science and art because you have to be very Socratic and objective and say, like, I actually don't know what the user sees, or I don't know what the user wants. Let me try to discover that. And so basically there's this like journey of like, you put a design out and you get a response, and it might not be what you thought it was gonna do. It might not do what you thought it was gonna do. So basically there's this like iterative process to create like and perfect product experiences. So basically that was like my start. I discovered Bitcoin, and like I went down, it was like 2017, 2016. And I was trading, and I lost like a bunch of Bitcoin on Coinbase, and like I basically like became like just like a hyper toxic maxi at that point, when I'm like just burned by Roger Ver, and like I was like, no, I'm not dealing with this anymore. It's immoral. Trading is immoral. So but that's also part of UX. Think about this, like the flow of trading and that product experience like led me to lose lots of Bitcoin. And I was like basically radicalized to like build healthy Bitcoin experiences that like help people build wealth over time and not lose it. So it's funny because I ended up joining Kraken. I'll talk about like casinos, I joined Kraken and helped, like, I was just like the one annoying vocal maxi, like, can we get Lightning? Can we like do like Bitcoin stuff here? And we got Lightning done with Pierre, and I was just pushing like simple Bitcoin experiences. And I was so overjoyed to just be able to like, it felt like I was taking a shower, to join Fedi, just like cleansing myself of like, the fiat world is gone. I'm stepping into like the pure Bitcoin world. But sorry, this is turning into a rant. I'm trying to tie this all together.
From all your crypto sins. It is fine.
Yeah, I mean, so basically at Fedi, I'll just wrap this up. At Fedi, we want to make sure that every product decision we make is actually solving problems for our users. There is this tendency in Bitcoin, specifically, I'll address this, the people building Bitcoin products are very smart a lot of the time. And they know a lot. They'll know a lot more than everyone else about Bitcoin. And so there's this temptation to build products in a way that's like, oh, this is how it should be. This is the product experience. And then you watch someone try to use it and they can't use it. And then the person who made the product is like, oh no, well, you're using it wrong. And like that right there is like, you failed. That's unacceptable. That is not how you build products, So I have some terms for this. I'm not going to say them now, but like it's kind of engineering-led thinking where they know the solution and they're making the solution, and if the users are messing up, the users are the problem. Where that's just completely opposite, right?
That's exactly right. And this also happened with the Linux distributions, where the people who were designing these operating systems didn't have any care for the end user. Many of these distros would have a website that had no pictures of the actual operating system running, because they said people don't need that. All they need to do is just run this on the command line and it'll be, and it doesn't work like that. You've got to test your designs. You've got to test it with real people and understand that you cannot get into the minds of other people. Other people think things that they think, and you think what you think. You've got to go to them, have focus groups, and all this kind of business. And so that kind of professionalism, which Apple does, to a lesser extent Microsoft does, that has to be brought into Bitcoin. Otherwise, it's not going to get anywhere. It's not going to be a consumer experience. And until somebody puts the money down to get this done, it's not going to go anywhere. And so what's very encouraging, and I told you this earlier, that I used the screenshots of the Fedi website to show some people we're working with, this is what a website should look like when we're trying to reach consumers. It has to have this kind of feel. It has to be very direct, very straightforward, very legible. And unless people are going to take these steps and understand that design is super important, nothing's going to happen.
Amen.
I have a new website to use as our model. Thank you. Thank you for that. Renata, tell us a little bit about your background and just specifically kind of your career and just sort of like how did you end up in this point?
Yes.
I'm sure people would like to hear a little bit about Paxful too.
Yes, exactly. So so basically I've been around the globe, living around the globe, like as each 4 years we move basically. And we do that because my husband likes new culture and I love people. And I'm literally, my husband always say this, like you go in a 10 minutes ride in the Uber and you know the whole thing about the life of the driver. And I do this, it's not for free, it's just because people always have something to share that is valuable for you. And that's something we are forgetting a lot when we are building technology, right? I was listening another day, someone interviewing the CEO of OpenAI. And the interviewer asked him, like, why all these big tech projects are failing? And he couldn't answer why. And then she said to him, oh, it's because you guys are not considering the human aspect on this. And for me, it's super key because we are building from human here, you know, like, and that's why I love about Bitcoin too. Because although we do this digitally, I was lucky enough, as I said, my experiences, my first experiences with Bitcoin they were like with real people. They were telling me, oh, look at what I do. Was a guy in Argentina who would buy Bitcoin for someone and would charge the phone of his mom in Brazil or anywhere in Latin. Or would it be Nigerian in the US who would try to send money back home, being helped by a Colombian who would buy the gift card that he would sell with discount. So it was like, that was my experience in Paxful. So I entered in Paxful in the very beginning, helped to grow the company. And my main strategy around this was education. So, but wasn't education like, what is blockchain? What is Bitcoin? Was like, we would talk about it, but we would talk specifically about how this can help you, right? So I come from Bitcoin, my view of Bitcoin is very utilitarian, how it can be useful for people. And that's how I see that we're gonna get to more people. The concept is beautiful. But if I can show to someone that this is cheaper, use Bitcoin to send money back home, I do this every single month. And I don't pay $25 to Western Union. In fact, like I make even some profit sometimes. If I tell this to someone, an immigrant in the US or whatever country, it makes sense. So I don't need to explain to him what blockchain is, what is mempool is, you know, like. It's just basic, and how you do this. So when we say in Fedi, and you guys might listen or be saying, we're gonna win by making Bitcoin, the whole ecosystem win, it's because I'm not gonna be able to just show Fedi to someone to send money to their home. I'm gonna need other people in the ecosystem to show to, oh, by the way, you can go use Bitrefill to somewhere and spend with, transportation or hotels or food. So it's just like educating people with the technical aspect. It's okay, but with the practical, it's where you go. You know, it's where the click is. We were talking about this. Is for me, Bitcoin is gonna win when we're not going to think about Bitcoin anymore. You know, when Bitcoin becomes invisible. And basically, oh, I'm using this. and this is so good for me that I want to learn more about it. It's the reverse thinking, in my opinion.
That's exactly right. And many times when I've been describing Azteco, I find that over and over again, talking about it doesn't work. It's much more effective to issue a voucher and let them redeem it themselves.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden the light bulb goes off. So at some point, you've got to stop talking about Bitcoin and show it. You've got to show what you can do with it. Say, well, if you have this wallet and you have this $100 in Bitcoin on your phone, you don't have to get out of bed to go to Western Union, show your ID, fill out 2 forms, pay them 11%, and then it will get there tomorrow. It will get there instantaneously. And so this is the age of talking about Bitcoin has to end. Bitcoin must become boring in order for it to succeed.
Yes, I agree.
So we're talking around this idea of like a learning by doing. And so, Akin, if you can talk a little bit just about how you think about usage, how you measure it. Like, obviously we want people to be using these things. And so just how does that show up at Azteco?
Well, it shows up in the number of vouchers we're selling. We've just opened up, I think about 200,000 outlets in Brazil, and we have 200,000 outlets in South Africa. And so we're in the middle of an activation program to activate these territories, and all throughout LATAM we have many tens of thousands of outlets. And the way to activate these territories is kind of mysterious, but it's a mix of PR, it's a mix of integrations and all sorts of things like that. What will happen though, which is why Fedi is quite interesting, when people talk about it amongst themselves, that's how the information about where to get Bitcoin can go viral without any of us doing anything. And then all of a sudden, the graphs will go up and to the right. And so that's what we're relying on. And also, we are in the middle of a redesign of our entire suite of web pages and user flows. And we have taken every techie aspect out of the workflow, because this is alien, it's contrary to the consumer, it's not useful for them. And so for Bitcoin to mature and to reach 1 billion people, it's got to be more Apple-like, it's got to be more consumer-friendly, and it's got to be, more Fedi-like. And I think this is something that you guys are doing very, very, very well. It's going to help you tremendously to reach those people who need it, and to explain it to them in terms that they can understand, that are very simple to get along with. And I think this has been something that's missing. So I wouldn't underestimate what Fedi's doing. You never know; these things can all of a sudden explode, and then the world is a very different place. So you got to be very, very careful. Now, I'm guilty of being a little harsh with new projects. Everybody knows that. I had Skyler blocked. I had to unblock him today. So I am.
We got to, yeah.
The reconciliation in this room is amazing.
Love is in there.
It's beautiful.
Bitcoin is love.
God is healing the
Yes,
broken bonds between us.
may even be a
We were
hook up here
talking
later.
earlier. He's like, "Website's great, Skyler. Your design is so amazing." I'm like, "Hey, can you unblock me, like before we go on stage and talk together?" He's like, "Sure."
Love it. So on that note, in conclusion, we got to wrap. But Skyler, take us down the line. How can people find out more about what you're doing, follow you, and maybe something on design also, where people can learn more?
Fedi.xyz is our website. Go check it out. Learn more about what we're doing. Oh yeah, my book, my New York Times bestseller, Reasons to Buy Altcoins.com.
That was you?
That was my book.
I have that book.
You know what's funny is I tell people about this book all the time. They don't know who wrote it. But they think someone else wrote it. But anyways, I wrote that book. It's a really good book. It's very thorough, But so Reasons to Buy Altcoins, and then just Skyler_FS on Twitter. Reach out to me. I love like brainstorming with people, product people, designers, engineers, anyone that like wants to build good products. I love talking to them. And eventually we will hire. We're hiring. We want to be very conservative in how we hire and make our money last very long. But we want to grow like an amazing team of people to build Fedi. So builders, come talk to me. Come find me. Yeah, I think that's
Great.
it.
That's awesome. King?
And for Azteco, you can find us on Twitter. It's AZTE.co. That's the website. But you can find us on Twitter, and Azteco _ and all the news about what we're doing and everything else will be there. And yeah, it's all pretty straightforward.
Awesome.
So Fedi is Fedi BTC for Telegram, for Twitter, and Fedi.xyz. And I just want to do the last provocation. I know we are totally run out of the time, but we are talking about like developing countries here. But I want you guys to leave this place thinking about about this thought. If a rich guy in Austin doesn't have control of his data or money, he's disempowered like an unbanked guy in Botswana. They both are disempowered. So we should think about it. We take for granted our access to everything. But if we lose the access, in a slight moment, you're going to realize, man, they have the power over us. So we need to leave this place with that. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you very much.